Hi everybody, it's Maureen of Maureen 97 Designs, and I'm here with the result of my very first junk journal self-challenge. I don't know if it's going to actually become a series where I challenge myself to do a bunch of different things regarding junk journals. But anyway, I issued myself a challenge recently that I want to use up some of my 6x6 paper pads because I have a ton of them. Either used, partly used, or not, some not even touched at all, that I bought when I was a stamper card maker. And seriously, a ton. So I've decided I need to get rid of some of them. But not like throw them away or whatever. I want to use them because the reason I bought them in the first place was because I really like the patterns. But the thing is, when it came around to using them, I maybe didn't like some of the patterns, so I didn't use those. Or maybe I made 2 cards out of this one paper pad and I thought, well, I've got, 16 more paper pads. I might as well use a new one for this next card. And so most of my paper pads are barely used. And there are just a few that I really just absolutely loved every single bit of it and used most of it up. So my first paper pad that I took out was This and That by Lori Whitlock from Echo Park Paper Company. And I really do like most of the patterns in here. There were just a couple I wasn't as fond of. But these are double-sided papers, so the great thing about that is if you don't like one side, there's a good chance you'll like the other side. So anyway, I had a number of full pages and then just a tiny bit of scraps. So I decided, first of all, since I had so much of it to use up, that I was going to make a cover using the papers. So what I did was I got a piece of heavyweight cardstock and I scored it in the near the center, so there's a 1-inch spine in the center. And then I cut up all these papers and glued them down temporarily to that cardstock, and then I sewed it all down with a zigzag stitch in black thread. And I really, really love how this came out. The thing is that I was going to just do that for the cover, but then the back of the cardstock had all the reverse stitching lines and sort of didn't make sense that it was just sort of random stitch lines everywhere. So I decided to do to cover that up on the inside, so I made inside covers as well. Same thing, I took the same heavyweight cardstock, but this time I just cut the 5 inches for the front, 5 inches for the back, and then I trimmed off just a slight bit for the spine so that there would be room for it to close up. And then I went ahead and did the same thing as I did with the outside, covered it up with different pattern papers and zigzagged it on, and then I glued this to the front. I made this one for the back, and then I zigzagged all the way around the whole thing, front and back, not front and back, but through the front, so that everything would be really well stuck together. And then what I did was I did the binding for the signatures. I have 3 signatures. I did the binding through that 1-inch spine that I had left over. It's actually just a sliver under 1 inch. And so I sewed my 3 signatures through that spine, and this is also covered with paper because you can see when you get between the signatures, you can see the spine. So I didn't want it to just be blank. I wanted it to match. So I actually did cover that with the pattern paper as well. And the reason why I do that is then your sewing of your signatures is hidden. I know a lot of people will do it where they go through the spine and you can see that you've sewn it through the spine to the outside, and people dressed it up with beads or charms or whatever, and I think that's totally fine. I just didn't want to do that for this particular book, and since I was making the whole cover myself anyway, I thought, why not hide the stitching from the signatures in a separate spine. So the stitching is hidden in that spine. So let me just take you through this really quickly. What I had originally envisioned was I wanted to use the paper pad up entirely, except for maybe, you know, a few tiny bits and pieces here and there. But I wanted to use up every single bit of that paper as creatively as I could. But with this one, it was kind of hard because I had so much paper. And then the other thing was I'm using a couple of different book pages, unlined paper, lined paper, graph paper, ledger paper. It's all coffee dyed. One of the books that I was using was a Danielle Steele novel, which I guess I should have thought about it beforehand, but there was some pretty raunchy text in there. And I accidentally picked a few of the pages for my book, and so I ended up wanting to cover up whole pages or a lot of the text. So I actually did do that. And then this actually is a botanical book, so I didn't necessarily want to cover up the text, but it was kind of boring, so I used a big piece of pattern paper as a journaling block. A little more creative use are these little tabs that I sewed on flush with the edge of the paper so they're not all sticking out, because, you know, if I stuck them out, it sort of signifies that there's something important on that page, and it might not be something important on that page when you actually go to write on it. So I wanted just more of a decorative tab, so that's why it's flush with the edge. I also used it over, I folded the strips in half and put them over the edge of this pocket, which is a book page, and that is to strengthen the edge of that pocket so it doesn't rip, because the book page is really flimsy. So I wanted to reinforce that edge so if you're opening up the pocket like this, it doesn't rip. And then I made a whole bunch of tags out of the pattern paper. Most of them you can write on one side, sometimes both. And then I just covered up a whole bunch of text because it was boring and I had a lot of paper. So here's another one of those flush tabs. I also did just decorative strips with zigzag stitching. I thought that was pretty cute. It just sort of ties in all the pages to the book to have at least little bits of the paper here and there. So this was just a tall, thin piece that I had, so I put it there, and that's another journaling spot. And then this is one of those pages I think I was trying to cover up some stuff. So this is a 4 by 6 inch block of paper, actually maybe more than 4, it might be like 4.5. That's just covering up the book print, and then you can journal on it. This is just covering up the boring book print and a journaling spot, but I wanted to leave these pretty botanical drawings because I think they're nice. And there's some drawings in the back here. I also used these sort of inspirational page-a-day notebook thing that I got from TJ Maxx. It has like 365 pages of lined notebook paper or notepad paper with an inspiring quote on the bottom of each page, so it's like a nice quote every day, and then you can, you know, use the top part for whatever you want. I actually went ahead and coffee dyed them, and then they're about this wide, so I sewed 2 of them together to make my page. Another one of those flush tabs, and I also made pockets with giant tags. This is another tab. I forgot to sew on that one, but you know, that's okay. Another pocket with another giant tag, flush tab. This is an envelope that I folded in half, and then I cut the flap so that it would open on each half, and I used some of the paper to decorate it because it was just plain and boring, and I have a tag in there. And then a little decorative like ruler strip. And then the other half of that envelope, I decorated the flap, and then I have a little sewn tag in there. And this one actually did not really have a good space for writing on it on either side, so I put some lined paper on the back of that and sewed it together. And then I just added this paper bag because I thought it was so cute. And here's another tag that you can write on the back. I really love this. It's a coffee, one of those round coffee filters. I cut it in half and then folded it and stitched two sides and made a double pocket. So you can put things behind the coffee filter and then also in this little slip it between the layers of the coffee filter. And then I made some tags, and I actually embellished the tags with tiny little strips of the pattern paper, sort of like reinforcements, but not quite, but just like a little decorative touch. I really like how those came out. Another flush tab, hiding the boring text and journaling space, more covering up of the text but leaving the nice botanical drawings. Another one of those coffee filter double pockets. This is the other half of that one coffee filter, so you can get two double pockets out of one round coffee filter. Covering up the book text, and then this side is pretty funny. I wanted to cover up just about the whole page, but I only had two smaller pieces of pattern paper to do it with, and so I ended up cutting them into small strips and covered up the more offensive words and things that were on this page. I probably should have just not used the page, but I had already started using it, and then when I turned it over I saw all this stuff that, you know, I wouldn't want people to read if they got it, so yeah, I ended up doing the strips and covering that up. And then here's some graph paper. I folded over to make a pocket with another tag, and this is a decorative strip I added onto the tag. A little decorative strip. Another envelope folded in half, and you can see what I mean by I cut the flaps to open on both halves of the pocket. And then this is a little embellishment. Almost looks like a stamp, except it's on the wrong side of the envelope. Another half pocket with the graph paper, and then I did this sort of fun treatment with this tag where I have this paper, and I actually really like this pattern, and so but the back didn't have really a good space for journaling, so I ended up adding this lined paper in. But then I had such a big piece of this paper, I decided to not waste the extra, and I folded it over the lined paper and then sewed down each side so that it's really stuck in there. And then tiny little pieces of the pattern paper where I sewed the pocket, hiding the book page, hiding more book page, a flush tab, another flush tab, another pocket, and this time I left the circle, the hole, because I thought that was actually a really cute accent for a pocket. And then another tag with that sort of faux reinforcement thing on the top. And there you go. That is my 6x6 pattern paper use up junk journal. I hope you like it. I'm sorry the ideas aren't like super creative, but I am going to do another one, at least one more. I've already started planning it out, and I'm going to do a process video with that one. And it has less pattern paper in that pad than I had in this one. So hopefully, because I won't be trying so hard to just use up big sheets of paper, that I'll kind of put on my thinking, my creative thinking cap, and do the things a little bit more creatively than just using big hunks of paper to cover up words. So I hope you'll come around when I post that video, and I want to say thank you very much for watching. I'll see you next time.